Beautiful Thursday morning. Thursday inakuwaga siku ya clinic. It is the relationship clinic. The clinic is officially open, my friend. Bench nimeweka hapo nje na nimesanitize kama kawaida. We are getting into our discussion this month. We are focusing on marriage and personalities. If you've ever done the Myers-Briggs personality test, you know they have I don't know, it's about 16 types of personalities and all that. And based on that, we are looking at different personalities and how they come together in marriage. What are some of the possible things they could face? How do they deal with that? So today, we are focusing on the sensing versus intuition. There are those who sense, and there are those who are intuitive. So when they come together and they're married, interesting scenario. Maybe you're listening in and you have no idea where you fall into this. I'm sure as we get into this discussion today, you'll probably begin to see, no wonder we are having these issues. He is a sensor, I am intuitive. So let's jump right into it. I've got two amazing guests who are joining me via Zoom today. We have Patience Waigoro. Patience Waigoro is a relationship coach focusing on the youth. Patience, how are you doing?
I'm good.
It's good to have you again. Karibu sana.
Yeah.
We also have marriage counselor Philip Mwangi. Philip, how are you?
I'm good, Pastor Kum. How are you?
I'm very fine. Karibu sana. Good to have you on my show, finally.
Thank you. It's been a minute.
Yes, karibuni sana, both of you. So, Patience, let me begin with you. Talking about sensing versus intuition, I think it's good for us, first of all, to understand when we are talking about the person who senses and the person who is intuitive, what kind of people are this? Help us with some of these definitions.
Okay. Thank you, James. It's actually as the words say.
Mm-hmm.
So the sensors use their senses to respond to situations, the way they react and the way they look at stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Then for the guys who are intuitive, they use their intuition. So that is how they respond to situations. So like if it's a situation like maybe seeing someone for the first time and falling in love, an intuitive person will fall in love at first sight. So that's just an example. Yeah.
Mwingine lazima angoje kidogo.
Lazima angalie the pros and cons and then just trying to understand where this person is coming from and any other things that come into play. But the intuitive person goes with their emotion mostly.
Okay. So I'm just wondering, Philip, does it really matter? Are these things important to know?
Yes, they are important to know because you don't want surprises. And amongst some of the things that you're learning about personalities, coming to understand their personalities and their temperaments, and both of them are very similar.
Okay.
Because if you look at personalities, there are extroverts and there are introverts.
Yeah.
So on the part of introverts, you will find somebody called a sanguine.
Mm-hmm.
A sanguine is the life of the party kind of a person.
Yeah.
So when they get into an environment or a space, they have already seen how to bring life into it and stuff. So in the same manner, they will attack even relationships like that. They will look at a person and see, this is a quiet person, the kind of a person I can be able to approach, and they go for it.
Okay. So when we
could add.
Yeah, please go ahead.
So like the sensing person will look at the details as they work their way into, like understanding what the whole big picture is.
Mm-hmm.
While the intuitive person, they see the big picture, then they'll dive into the details later, not right away. Yeah.
Okay. Now it's beginning to make some sense and point us in a particular direction. So I'm just thinking, so you have this person who's a sensor and this other one who is more intuitive, and they come together in a relationship, they're married. Let's talk about communication. How will their communication look like? What are some of the possible conflicts they could have in communication? Because like you said, one is depending on their senses. Huyu mwingine, my friend, ni wa kufeel. Mi sikufeel. So what are some of the possible things that could happen where communication is concerned, patients?
Okay, so for the intuitive person, they're very discerning of people's emotions. They express their emotions well, but they also discern the other person's emotions. So they'll pick up on how the other person is feeling. While the sensor, I mean, unless you tell them, they'll rarely discern or know what's going on, as in you have to give them facts. So you might be assuming, because you're an intuitive person, the other person should also just, pick up on what women, we're guilty of this a lot. It's not all women, but where we expect the men to know. They should know. They should read in between the lines. And we are not saying. We're expecting them to pick up on it, especially if it happens where the intuitive type. While on the other hand, the sensors, they want to hear. They want to know the facts. They want to, and they by the way, when you tell them, they'll get all those details and they'll be able to like respond and communicate. But if you don't tell them, my friend, you will have a lot of breakdown in that communication.
Philip, have you ever faced such a situation in your marriage? Where your wife was expecting, boss, you just here. Do I have to spell it out to you? Can't you feel the way I'm feeling? Can't you read between the lines?
Let me tell you, marriage is interesting because it's like when you're studying in school, you are given the certificate after graduation.
Yeah.
Now, when you get into marriage, you're given the certificate before the graduation.
Yes.
So it's very interesting because now you learn things on ground. Marriage has very different dynamics. And so I think in this case, I might be the sensor stroke, the intuitive person, because in many cases, I would expect my wife is sensing me. And kwa nini haelewi, kwa nini hashikanishi, lakini sijaisema. So when things go haywire, I'm like, you didn't understand what I was saying, and she's like, you didn't tell me.
Yeah. So
the thing I've learned over the past, like now going 8 years, I'm still learning. Like Pastor Okumi should tell us because we've been there longer. Some of us are kindergarten. So some of the things I'm learning is to verbally communicate. I'm not assuming she's understanding what I'm saying, and I haven't spoken it, I haven't said it.
I like that. Very important. Because I'm just thinking, patients, sometimes we get into murky waters because of that thing, assumptions. You haven't told me, but you're holding me guilty, but you haven't told me what you're thinking. Yeah? And I think sometimes, I don't know, maybe you can tell me, patients, the people who are more intuitive, are they the kind of people who are consistently jumping into conclusions? Ajakuambia, why are you jumping to conclusions? What are these things you're consistently feeling? Am I right in thinking in that direction? I'm pia mimi na assume.
By the likely thing with the intuitive person, even when they actually sense the right thing. So by them voicing it, you might be still in denial, especially if you're still trying to understand what you're going through.
Yeah.
So you might feel a bit offended that they are, stating one thing or the other. But at the same time, there is that where they jump to conclusions or make assumptions is like the other person is discerning like the way they are.
Okay.
Or they are seeing things as they are. So they get offended over, and they have not yet voiced what they are going through, what they are sensing, what they are feeling. And it makes them now start, the Cold War start as
yeah.
As we were saying earlier.
So how do we find balance? How do we find balance? Because one is depending on facts. We're talking about, let's say, for an example, they want to buy property, they want to buy an asset, they want to invest some money somewhere. The sensing person needs all the facts, isn't it? Them, they want all the facts before they can make a decision. The intuitive person is thinking, me, I'm just feeling. I just feel this is the thing for us, or I just feel apana. But the other person is thinking, but look at the facts. This is the right way to go. So how do we find balance so that we avoid some of these conflicts and assumption making?
If I am to say something, first of all, again, in terms of temperaments and personalities, I explained that they are really the same. Like, there are four main temperaments that, four main personalities that I have come across. There's type A, type B, and type C, and then there is type X. Now, type A and sanguines are very similar in the way they respond to circumstances and situations and all that.
Yeah.
So the one thing that is very clear, sanguines are people who they are very spontaneous. They ataamka saizi aseme tunaenda Nyeri. While a phlegmatic, for example, who a phlegmatic and there's the other one, not choleric, melancholy, are very extroverts. So they process things. Wanafikiria, they need to be warmed up to it. They are what patience is talking about. So it is very, when you learn now that you're in marriage and you need to communicate, you need to make decisions consulting the persons. Like, for example, one time my wife and I were getting ready to go to church, and she woke up and said, I have this feeling that we don't need to go to church.
She has this feeling?
Yes. So I was like, what do you mean? So, having known the way things have happened before, because there are those days we said, let's go, and something bad happened. So this time I paid attention and I said, let's sleep. We slept. We didn't go to church that Sunday. And she woke up and said, umebaki, and you have had me. So I decided to be making asking her some of these things so that I'm not caught unaware. Wrong things don't happen. And also in marriage, I'm learning, like Patience has said, women are mostly intuitive.
Okay.
So they sense things ahead of time. Like, they will tell you there's something wrong with this person, listen to them. They will tell you don't spend this money, and you spend again, listen to them. So you cannot survive in marriage if there is no communication.
Okay.
For sure.
Yeah, go ahead, Patience.
Yeah, so two things you can do in if you have such a, in answer to your question. Ask questions, as in, like the person who's saying they're feeling, why are they feeling like that? What is making them respond like that? And also listen. Listen and provide details, provide the facts, even if you're by the intuitive person makes sound judgments, but they need that balance. They need that the details provided. Much as they'll start with the big picture, they have that vision, but they always they will need those facts provided. So that so even if they started without them, it would be very good just to give all the details.
Okay, great. Now, if you have any questions for us today, 20316 is the SMS line, and the WhatsApp number is 0786 316 316. We are talking about personalities in relationships, focusing on marriage. We are looking at sensing versus intuition. Maybe you've begun to get a picture of where you fall between these two. What are some of the conflicts you've been having that have been coming up because of just the way you look at life? You look at life differently. Maybe you are into the details and you rely on the senses, and your spouse is more the intuitive kind of person. They feel things, they sense things, and you're thinking, apana. Talk to me and tell me what are some of the possible conflicts that you could be having. The clinic is open, my friend. It is the relationship clinic. We are looking at marriage and personalities. Today we are looking at sensing versus intuition. In studio with me, Patience Waiguru, who's a youth relationship coach, and Philip Mwangi, who is a marriage counselor. If you have any questions for us today, 20316 is the SMS line, and the WhatsApp number is 0786 316 316. Patience, I have a question here from Joe. Joe is asking, if I'm actively in discernment, he's always discerning things, is that intuition or is that sensing?
That's intuition.
Mm-hmm. Yes. That's intuition. Okay, let's look at let's look at something else here. You know, I was reading somewhere, and this person was saying the difference between these two people is that one sees a tree, the other one sees the forest. You know, they are basically seeing the same thing, but from a very different perspective. And I'm just thinking about, you know, you're married, you have plans, you know, where you want this marriage to go, some of the things you want to accomplish. But here you have one person who's seeing a tree, and the other one is seeing the whole forest. One is thinking, now go. The other one is thinking here. How do we marry the two? Patience.
All right, so the one thing the tree is the sensor. So they start with the details.
Yeah.
And later on, as you point it out, you point out to them that actually it's not just one tree, there's a whole forest. So you work them up from the details, yeah? And then on the other hand, the person seeing the forest is the intuitive. So you need to tell them, much as we have a whole forest, in here, we have all these kinds of trees and they have all these benefits, you know, all that. I'm just giving an example. So you bring them from the big picture and help them to zoom in. While for the sensor, you help them to zoom out and see a bigger vision. Yeah.
You know, sometimes, Philip, you have a spouse who, like you said, umeamka tu leo, we are going to Mombasa, and they haven't thought out the details. And the other spouse has the homework of picking up the pieces and making sure things work the way they're supposed to work. You know, that for me is a recipe for conflict. And I'm just wondering, how do you kind of like tame each other, so to speak, because both perspectives are important, but how do you find balance? You know, because I've seen situations where you wake up and you're saying we are doing this, and sometimes you do it and then you tell your spouse you've done it. You get, because you are so much ahead, ulikuwa umeona forest zote za dunia, you know, you've done it, and then you come and tell by your wife, oh, by the way, I've done this and this and this. Is there a possibility of the sensor being feeling like they've been left out because you are always nauko, and how do you manage that?
Very good. A classic example is where finances are involved.
Oh yes, let's go there.
I have been a victim, man. I mean, I know my wife is listening, so akiniona baadaye nitachunwa or something.
Yeah.
So the thing is, I have done that severally.
Oh,
I'm on ground, you know. As men, we are wired to be solution providers.
Yeah.
So apart from the intuition and the sensing, men are wired to be solution providers. So as far as temperaments are concerned, I am like 70% a sanguine. So that has been a challenge on my side, because sometimes I find myself on ground with a situation that needs to be handled then. So I handle it. So when I go back home and my wife asks me a simple question, so did you pay for this and the other? I'm like, sorry?
Yeah.
And she's like, yes, did you pay? I'm like, I did something else. You did what? So right there, the storm not only brews, but inanyesha, the rain falls right there. So I have learned to do this. Before I do such a thing, I have to tell her. I tell her, like, today I intend to do A, B, and C.
Yeah.
So that I bring her into the picture, because she has severally made it clear that once you have done the thing and you tell me, it beats the purpose.
Yeah.
So I have learned to make sure I whoop her into the conversation I consult. And let me tell you, as men, that is quite something where you need to consult your wife. Like, do I buy 3 packets of milk or I buy one? Is it Ilara or is it yogurt? I found myself in such a situation where nimenunua maziwa na alikuwa amesema nunua mala.
Si hata mala ni maziwa.
So mi jioni nitajitetea.
Yes.
I'm going to jitetea. How is it that I said mala and you say and you bought milk? So, that is very important, especially in marriage. And I'll tell you for sure, when you get into marriage, you just need to learn that you die to yourself.
Okay.
And you die daily.
You die daily. Listen to this one, Patience. What would you say to this? This one is saying, interesting conversation there. There were 3 projects that my husband was planning to invest in. And I told him I don't feel comfortable about them. He went ahead and invested, and all of them flopped. Recently, I stopped him from investing in a certain machine. He went ahead and bought 2 of them, and they haven't worked for us. Patience, what do you think about that?
Okay, one thing she should have done is not just say, I feel that she shouldn't. She should have come with the facts. So much as she was feeling, she should have done some research and shown, brought facts to the guy. Because for him, it's like, oh, you feel. Like nothing new there. Women, you're always feeling. So she should have at least brought some facts to the table. And even with the next one, sensing people, by the way, they actually remember the past a lot. So much as the intuitive people are seeing into the future, they remember the sensing people remember the past. So just reminding him, in the past, this happened to so and so, this happened to the other person, and you remember the other time you didn't listen. So just actually bringing, fact after fact, and bringing the details and being very direct. So that it is very clear why you are against it. And then maybe suggesting, instead of doing 3 projects at the same time, if you really want to do, let's do one. If it succeeds, let's move on to the next one. But if it fails, then just showing, like, even if we went in that direction, this is the kind of loss we are looking at.
Very, very true. I like that balance because, from the other perspective, man, at least she has a husband who's thinking of investing. She has a husband who, is trying to put things together to ensure that the family has a good supply of resources they need. And so that's a good thing. You may have invested in places that didn't work, but at least he has the mind to invest. And so I think when both of them come together, I love what you said, okay, instead of investing in these 3, situanze na moja. We see how it goes. If it works well, then we build pole on it. Because sometimes then also you might end up seeming like you are the prophet of doom in this family. Unasemaga tu hiyo hapana, but you never offer solutions. So what do we do? Back to what Philip had said earlier, Patience, because I think there's the other end where, okay, there's that one who decides and does. They're intuitive about something, and they go ahead and do it, and then they'll come back and say, oh, by the way, I did this and this and this. But flipping it, I'm seeing a danger also on the sensing spouse because they depend on facts and they depend on their senses. Is there a possibility of over-planning and not getting to do much? What do you think about that?
Analysis paralysis.
Yes, yes, that one. Is that a possibility? Patience?
Yes, it is. Actually, let me give an example. My father-in-law has a lot of analysis paralysis. He can analyze from here to, But one thing I noticed with my mother-in-law, she learned a long time ago. This is the way my husband is. So sometimes what she does is that she'll take him to the ground, like if it was about buying land or maybe planting, maybe deciding, okay, on this land of ours, we're going to plant some avocados, some oranges. So just taking him to the ground and saying, okay, you have analyzed, you have seen the market shows, there is potential in getting returns for this. So where are we getting the seedlings? So they actually get out of the house and they go.
Yeah.
And, just getting him to start and tell him, okay, I know we have 5 acres, but now let's just plant on an acre and see how it does, So just bringing the practical. So she doesn't just let him stay in the house and read all these articles and do research. She takes him to the ground. So that's one way where you move away from, the facts on paper, and you step out and you actually go and look at practical situations and you try it out. So because they're afraid to start, so if you just convince them to do a sample, that way they might be willing to try next time, especially if there is some successful returns.
Okay. Philip, I'm just wondering, do these different personalities handle conflict differently? When we're talking about the sensor and the one who's intuitive, do they handle conflict differently? Because one is focusing on the past, the other one is looking way into the future. When conflict happens, how do they deal with it? How do they approach it?
It's very true, Pastor Okumu. They handle conflicts very differently. They have what is called strengths and weaknesses.
Okay.
They have what is called, there's what is also pressure points and stuff like that. So, I like to use myself as a classic example. From how I handle pressure is when it is too much, I now look for a lot of encouragement. I look for somebody to say something that will encourage myself, because
Okay.
I'll also do the same. I like to enter into a situation where if I see there is discouragement and people that need to be lifted, I will not inanisumbua kuangalia tu looking at people that there's something wrong and no one is there to encourage them. So in the same manner, they also handle conflict very differently. So there is need for that communication to be there, because also in marriage you'll understand that there is the way my wife handles pressure and there is the way I handle pressure myself. So the kind of pressure I handle, she may not be able to handle. For example, as the man and in quotes the breadwinner of the house, there are so many pressures that come. There is the bills, there is the pay school fees, pay that. So that pressure can come, and there's a way I can handle by thinking of solutions. Nikisonga.
Yeah.
But for her, she needs to process. So where will I get this money? Where will I get this solution? She's thinking and almost meditating about it. So if quite honestly, they all handle pressure very differently. They cannot handle the same. So what needs to be understood by both is that each has its own way of handling. But now when you come together, what do you do? Like, for example, my wife and I decided no matter what happens, whether we disagree or we agree, we have to pray together.
Okay.
And even before we got married and to now, we always do that. So there are those times, mimi sitaki kuongea, so she will pray. And quite honestly, that has really worked for us, because in prayer, we have seen God do things for us.
Okay.
And also in marriage, you also understand that the Bible says two cannot be together unless they agree. So it is very important, as you are thinking of your solution and she's thinking of a solution, you agree together.
Okay.
Yes.
Patience, anything you want to add to that in terms of how both these personalities handle conflict?
Yeah, so the sensing person will come with the facts,
Yeah.
not so much the feelings. They'll say, you did this, you did the other, and so it will really help to, like, it doesn't make the situation boil out of control. It sort of calms it down. While on the other hand, the intuitive person will come with all the emotions. You did this, you made me feel like this, you made me feel like this. So it's the same scenario, but they are coming with their feelings, which might make it boil out of control. So they need to listen to one another. So the sensing person, they're just looking at the facts. They're like, but I mean, I didn't mean to do that, or this is what I did. I didn't intend to hurt you in that way. So if they both listen to one another, they will come to like a sort of reconciliation point.
Is there a danger of
able to?
Sorry, I'm wondering, is there a danger for the sensing person to come across as being insensitive because you're so focused on the facts? Yeah, you don't seem like you are sensitive to what's going on. I remember reading a story of this couple who had lost their child, and the woman was the one writing how it was quite a struggle for her because her emotions were all over the place, but her husband was so focused on what needs to be done now. People are going to be coming, visiting, we need to do this, we need to do this. He was so focused on the planning of what needs to take place now. He is not crying. He doesn't seem like it. So they got to a place there was conflict because the wife was feeling like, you're so heartless. You're so emotionless. I mean, for goodness sake, our child has just died and you're busy planning this, doing this, doing this. But hey, these things need to be done. The fact is the child is dead. We need to do a burial. People are going to come visit. Who's going to take care of these things? So I don't know what you think about those two scenarios and how to find balance.
So
so in that scenario, sorry, the wife should have leaned on the husband's strength. Like the fact that he's able to stand up and do the practicals. But at the same time, just talk to him and tell him it's okay to grieve.
Yeah.
From time to time. Yeah. So lean on his strength in the fact that his way of grieving is getting into, practical solutions. Like, this needs to be done. This needs to be done. But the wife in that scenario, instead of saying, how comes you're not? Just tell him it's okay to take a moment and just grieve.
Okay.
Yeah.
Philip,
some of them, by the way, they wait until after the funeral to, grieve after everyone has gone. Yeah.
Very
and
true.
you need to be there for them. Yeah.
Very, very true.
Sorry. Yeah. I interrupted Philip.
It's okay. Yeah, Philip seemed like he had something he wanted to say. Philip.
I was actually about to say the same. She's read my mind. So maybe, I don't know whether that is intuition or sensing, one of those things. However,
she is intuitive. Yes.
In the husband getting himself busy, another scenario is that's his way of dealing with it. He may not necessarily show it or portray it, but in the business of what he's doing, he is processing. Men are thinkers. Men process things internally, while women project the feelings and emotions. And correct me if I'm wrong, Patience. So the man may not want to, may move in movement and in action, locomoting, because that is his way of dealing with it. While for the woman, she's like, let's stop everything, let's mourn, watch her to mourn and all that. And that's not a problem.
Yeah.
Just that there needs to be that, I mean, at that point, if the husband had there was a way of communicating and saying, by doing all this, apart from handling things, this is my way of dealing with it. Maybe it would have been more clear.
Okay. Shortly, we'll talk about this. I find that,
Sir James, if I could,
you want to add something?
I could correct one thing.
Yeah.
Sorry. Yes, I want to correct one thing. It's not all women who are intuitive, and it's not all men who are sensors.
Very true.
And you can be both. As a single person, you alone can be both intuitive and a sensor.
Very, very true.
Yeah.
In fact,
so even in that scenario, it could have even been flipped.
The other way around.
The wife could have been the one up and down, arranging the funeral, while the husband cannot even make a move. Yeah.
I like that. That's very important. In fact, when you say that, I'm just thinking. I have some friends who, male friends who are very emotional, men very emotional. Their emotions are usually all over the place. So I love you've said that. Now, shortly we'll talk about, when I think about the person who's sensing, because they're so focused on the facts, and all these things, they don't take risks. They want everything planned. But the intuitive person, men, them, they just want to be carefree and all that. And sometimes the sensing person can be a bit boring. They don't want to take risks. They don't like adventure. We have to plan for an adventure. No, an adventure has to happen. So, I mean, we'll look at those two scenarios shortly. If you have any questions for us today, 20316 SMS line, WhatsApp number 0786 316 316. Patience, back to you. As I was saying earlier, you know, the person who is a censor, you know, they want all the facts. Their point of reference is the past. The person who's intuitive, man, them, they just want to explore. They want newness. They are going with their, you know, their gut feelings and their thoughts and all that. And so there's that tendency of the sensing person not to want to try new things. And sometimes that can become a hindrance in a relationship. What are your thoughts about that?
All right. So I think one of the things is just trusting God to help them overcome that fear. See, it's the fear of the unknown, of the future, and or assuming like the facts they have are not enough.
Yeah.
So just trusting God to help them overcome that fear. And then, like I said earlier, just trying it in small steps.
Yeah.
So they don't have to do the whole thing at once. They can actually just start with you know, just trying out a bit and surrounding themselves with people who, you know, are adventurous, people who are willing to take risks, so that, you know, that also rubs off on them. So if they find they have that analysis paralysis, so that really helps. I think maybe that's why, you know, the opposites attract.
Yeah.
Like I was saying with my in-laws, you know.
Yeah.
They for my dad to have, my father-in-law to have married my mom-in-law is because I think he noticed, you know, she has that what he's missing. So just, you know, surround yourself with such people. It will help to, you know, jump into it. And when they do make mistakes, it's okay. They don't have to again get paralyzed. They not try again.
Yeah.
They you know, if it's something that needs their repentance, they repent and trust that God has forgiven them and they move on. If it is something that, you know, it was a loss, there's always another time. They're still alive. They're still on this earth. They can still try again.
Very true.
They should not give up. Yeah.
I like that. I think it's important for us to understand that it's not a right or wrong thing. It's just that people perceive the world differently. People take in information or communicate differently, and hence this different personality types that we have. Philip, before we finish, you brought in a very important aspect when you were sharing earlier, giving us an experience of how you and your wife handle some of these conflicts, and you brought in the aspect of prayer. And I think maybe we can end it on that note, because sometimes we use our personality as an excuse. Mi nakuwaga tu hivo, you know, and so you don't want to reach a compromise with your spouse. You're so bent on, this is how I think, this is how I'm wired, there's nothing I can do about it. But as you shared about prayer, I thought, yes, at the end of the day, for those of us who are born again, our personality type, or the personality we lean towards, cannot be an excuse for us to be unkind or not to think about what our spouses are going through or what they're feeling. So, Philip, I don't know how you can direct us where the importance of just prayer and getting to a place where you allow God and His Spirit to lead you, even where such issues are concerned.
Yes. So thank you for pointing that out, Pastor James. And quite honestly, I think that's where most marriages fail. As far as personalities and temperaments are concerned, we shift blames on such kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And that is not the way. When I talked about marriage is a place where you just need to die daily, I take the example of what Christ did on the cross. He basically gave himself up for the sake of the entire world.
Yeah.
So that if any man would accept him, he can be saved. So in the same manner, marriage has taught me that, because in many instances, I have secretly prayed for my wife, not because she has always done wrong or she's done the other, but because I understand
Yeah.
that the one person that has kept this marriage together is not even Philip, it's not Christian, it is God.
Yes.
And so a marriage that is without the God factor is headed for trouble.
Very true.
And that is why the prayer aspect and even reading the word together cannot be thrown out.
Yeah.
It is very important for God to be, because God is the cementing factor that keeps this marriage. So if God is not in the picture, then ask yourself, what is keeping you guys together?
Yeah.
And so if I am to encourage couples, and even if we get a chance to pray together with couples, because I'm sure this is not an easy time for couples, especially finances, loss of jobs, hard decisions that they have to make. They should, the one thing that should bring you guys together is not because you're husband and wife. It is because it is God that has brought you guys together.
I love that.
And so for us, the other day I sat down with my wife and I was thinking, how have we made it to this far? And I cannot attribute it to anything else except God.
Very
and
true.
the many times that we have made it a conscious decision to pray.
Wow. Philip, thank you so much for sharing that. Patience, thank you so much for being a part of this discussion. Unfortunately, I have run out of time, but I'm getting some good feedback. Somebody saying, I'm the sensitive person in the relationship, always afraid to take risks, but today I have been encouraged on how to handle that. Another one says, Patience just answered my question. We are in the discussions of a 5-acre piece, and my partner has done a 2-year paper research, but it is me asking all the questions. We have never done avocados. How about we try a small piece? We are far. Who will manage it? Do we have a market? And so they're finding answers through the conversation today. Well, the clinic needs to be closed because wakati unkwisha, God willing, we'll get to do it again next week. Have yourselves a great day.
This and more of our shows, log on to www.familymediaonline.com to enjoy a wide variety of programs, from current affairs to testimonials and features, pastoral and inspirational shows, kids entertainment, and so much more. Also stream live on www.familymedia.tv.